Hey YouTube, this is Kevin Poulan of Poulan Small Engine, and today guys I'm working on a 235. This 235 is basically a piece of shit Poulan. Alright, in truth and honesty I don't know what's wrong with it, it's burned up, but I figured this opportunity would be perfect for my viewers to see that when you purchase a Husqvarna, okay, you're basically purchasing a Poulan, especially if it's on the cheaper lines, okay? So without further ado, I'm going to sit down here and I'm going to turn the saw around and show you basically the failure points to these chainsaws. And like I said, yes, they're exactly the same failures that you could typically see in your Poulan line. I'm also going to weigh in on check valves, which, as I say, as I go into this video, you're going to be able to take some information away from what I'm presenting, even though I haven't actually got a carburetor off of a Husqvarna or a Poulan. Naturally, I can't tear this man's chainsaw up to accommodate a YouTube video, okay? So I hope you guys will forgive that fact. But as I said, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead, step down here, and show you guys that this 235 is basically a Poulan. If you guys look, you're going to see that this coil is the exact same coil that you use on your Poulan Pros flywheel as well. If you also look carefully, you're going to see, and I'll use the aid of a light here, that the insulator, even though someone's obviously made a repair here, is exactly like that of a Poulan. This, of course, is the insulator, guys, and I'll try to turn it over to where you can have a better look. This is the insulator. This is just a protective rubber jacket over it. And as you can see, someone had made an effort. There's the insulator. Someone had made an effort to actually put on new neoprene for the primer. In doing so, they were desperately trying to tune the carburetor. Now that would be okay, guys, if the carburetor basically hadn't took a shit on them. Which brings me to the next part, if you will, in this video. I realize that they make special screwdrivers for these chainsaws, as well as Poulans. And as a matter of fact, I'll even show you guys a few of them here momentarily. What a lot of my viewers fail to understand is, just because they make a screwdriver doesn't mean that you're going to be able to adjust this carburetor if there's a problem that arises with your equipment. And I'll explain. What actually happens is, in these carburetors you have a check valve. That check valve internally has a piece of neoprene that's rubber. And I'm going to be able to show you that here momentarily on a steel chainsaw carburetor, because as I said, unfortunately, I just don't have a Poulan carburetor to be able to show you, okay? But still, you'll be able to see the check valve and you'll be able to gather information, if you will, from that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and move this chainsaw away, because obviously you can see that it's basically a piece of shit Poulan. It's the exact same thing. You can see the muffler, side cover. I mean, it doesn't get more obvious than that, okay? It's just a Poulan in a Husqvarna jacket, if you will. And yes, guys, you are seeing the price that the customer actually paid for this from a pawn shop, which is $119 for this 235 that was used, be minded viewers. I don't know what makes people think that they're going to get deals at pawn shops with something that cheap, okay? Because I'll be straight up with you. Generally speaking, these chainsaws, I think they go for like $230, $240, okay? So, there's no way that I would pay almost half price for a chainsaw that's wore out to this degree, as you guys can see. I mean, this chainsaw is completely worn out. And like I said, I've done had the spark plug out. I done know the piston and cylinder scored because of the seals. But as I say, guys, without rambling on, here's what I was wanting to show you. Inside this carburetor, if you guys will be able to see, and I'll make sure that I get this in view, okay? I'll try anyway. Let's make sure the camera's picking it up. Inside this carburetor, you're going to see there's a check valve right here. See that little brass piece? Inside that brass piece there, guys, is a piece of neoprene. That neoprene is essential, okay, in order to make the carburetor perform as intended. Now, where people make their mistakes is they think that just because they have a screwdriver, they can adjust the high and low settings, and the carburetor will potentially work as intended. And that's just not the case, guys, especially with the way the modern gasolines are anymore. This check valve will swell, okay? The neoprene in it will swell. As a result, no matter how much you try to tune your low or high mixture, it's not going to regulate the fuel as intended. What actually happens a lot of times is people will tune these carburetors, or carburetors on even a Poulan, and it'll work for maybe a day or two. Or maybe they even may have the great results that they're seeking out. But what they fail to understand is that check valve has already been damaged. It's already swollen. So what they're doing is they're manipulating the carburetor and the critical fuel to gas ratios. As a result, they then score their piston and cylinders. So, as I was showing you, this is a check valve. I'm hoping I got that in view for you guys. The proper way to test a carburetor is to have a pressure tester, okay? Now, I have one that you guys have seen in other videos. Alright? This came with my EMAC kit. This pressure tester works great. A carburetor should hold at about 5 pounds, okay, for 10 seconds, if not longer, okay, with one of these gauges. If that carburetor doesn't hold, then the carburetor isn't any count. And I'm going to do my best here, guys, to show you on this little 025 what I'm talking about. Now, I know this 025 had issues, so we're going to pump it up, and I'm going to show you on this gauge what actually happens. Now, as you guys can see, hopefully in the gauge, that it's slowly but surely going down. As you guys can see, the needle's going down slowly. So that carburetor isn't any count. It needs to be gone through, or in honesty, replaced. I would recommend that you replace the carburetors when they get to this point, because trying to put a kit in them, you're basically wasting your money. Now, there's going to be a few of you guys wonder what the check valve is when you take apart one of these carburetors, and I'll show you. This, of course, is the open version of an 025 steel. The same carburetor we was pressure testing, if you will, guys. Okay, same carburetor. This is your check valve right here. And as I said, if this check valve is faulty, no matter how much you try to tune the carburetor, it's simply not going to work. Now, with that being said, guys, I know there are a bunch of you out there that are typically wondering what kind of screwdrivers are available for chainsaws and trimmers. And there's going to be those of you guys that are adamant, that think that I'm full of shit, that I don't know what I'm talking about, so for you, I'm even going to try to accommodate the adamant viewers, if you will. And I'm going to provide a list of screwdrivers here, or more or less, for you to be aware of if you are dedicated to fucking up, if you will. Alright? This screwdriver is called a double D. And I'll explain all of this later. This screwdriver is called a Pac-Man. This screwdriver is a splined. This is used to pull limiter caps from Red Max. This, of course, is a single D. This is used to pull limiter caps from larger carburetors. You typically see these on the Husqvarnas, or Husqvarnas, if you will. And this is the hexagon. These are your most typical. The reason they make so many different styles, if you will, is these screws that are for your high and low, typically from the manufacturer, will have special engravings, if you will, alright, into them. As a result, they obligate their potential dealers and sales reps to sell these various types of screwdrivers. And yes, most of them can be bought from eBay. There are a few, though, you have to be a dealer to have access to. So without further ado, guys, I'm going to go ahead and lift these up and try to give you a close-up and basically tell you what they are and typically what they fit. This is called a double D. And as you can see, hopefully in this video, that there's two little slots here and here, and it makes a perfect D shape. That's the reason why they call it a double D. Not to be confused with bras, guys, or boob size. This is a single D. This is considered a Pac-Man, and hopefully you'll be able to see there's a small little indentation right there. This is splined. Hopefully it shows up in the camera. You can see the little splines in it. This is your most typical for Poulans. So this will be probably what you're seeking out if you're working on a Poulan. This, of course, is a hexagon. And as you can hopefully see, there's a hexagon type shape on this adjusting screwdriver, if you will. And of course, I pretty well explained what these are. This is, of course, from Red Max. And it's used to pull the limiter caps from the carburetor so you have access to the screws. And this, of course, isn't used on your bigger Husqvarnas. Same concept, to remove limiter caps. Now, guys, I wanted to note, earlier I had talked a little bit about that chainsaw, and typically some of the failure points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the chainsaw back, more or less to reiterate common problems on these saws. Typically, guys, your insulators will leak on these saws when they get warm. And if you remember earlier, I was explaining that the insulators on the saws are right here. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. right here. Also, a failure point is just beneath the flywheel. You're going to find that there's a top and a bottom cap, or I should say there's just a bottom cap with the top being the jug. When that jug is mated to that bottom cap, it deforms the seals. And you saw in the prior video, if you watch Poulan, why I hate these seals. But as you guys can see, this seal is deformed, and as a result, it will allow the chainsaw to behave erratically. Speed up, slow down, cast the chain, you name it. Okay, I've seen them just act crazy as hell, to be honest with you. And that's basically your reason. It's because of the way these seals are made. As you can see, all they do is take a bearing, press it into the sleeve of that seal, and basically just shove the crankshaft through it. As a result, when this gets compressed, there's a limited amount of space between the jug and the bottom cap, and the seals will typically leak once they get warm. Which is exactly why I was telling you guys that I despise Poulan and Husqvarna, the cheaper lines, for this very reason. 90% of your problems are right here with a Poulan chainsaw or one of these cheap ass 235 Husqvarnas, which is basically the same thing. I know that over time people expect changes to be made to these saws, and that they think that the quality is going to get better. But I'm here to tell you guys, it's not. I have seen some of the current Poulans that they've brought out, even the bigger 50cc's now that they're introduced. They're still pieces of shit. Okay? Husqvarna isn't going to do anything to fix these problems. Not when you have price point shoppers, if you will, that typically are going to buy them from Tractor Supplies and Walmarts. They know legally all they have to do is provide that product and allow people to purchase them, take them home, and screw up so that they return them to a dealer. They know this. I mean, it's the truth. As a dealer, and I can personally tell you this from where I work, we see quite a deal of these new chainsaws come in under warranty. We're supposed to be under warranty, shall we say. In truth and honesty, the damn things, we get the runaround. Okay, to make a long story short, we get the runaround. They'll tell us that you know, to warranty these chainsaws when they come in, but when we're honest and we tell them where the failures are, and there's so many of them, they get angry at us. Okay, they don't want us to be honest with the public. They want to keep it a secret so that they don't draw too much heat to themselves. And believe me, they have many lawyers to protect their shady deals, contrary to what people might think. And that's the reason why I'm ranting on here. I want my viewers to realize just the lengths that these crooked bastards will go in order to fuck you as a customer. I hate it personally. That's one of the reasons that I don't deal with Husqvarna or Poulan for that matter, because I know how shady they are. I would like to tell you that it ends there with Husqvarna. That would be bullshit, guys. I have seen more and more in the last 10 years of this greedy, selfish, steal your dollar mentality from these companies than I ever have in the past 20 years, 20 plus, that I've been working on small engines. I do not like what they're doing. I personally do not do it myself. That's the reason that I personally do not work on Poulan chainsaws. to be honest with you, that's why a lot of shops don't work on Poulan chainsaws, because they know in doing so they're screwing their customers. And if you're in a business, you realize that a happy customer is a repeat customer. Husqvarna don't give a damn. They're about sales, period. Okay? And that's something that's seriously neglected to be mentioned when you purchase a Husqvarna product. But without rambling on, guys, I'm going to show you a few more tools that I have at my disposal for these chainsaws, if, like I said, you're one of these adamant people who actually want to work on them. Just because I don't doesn't mean that I can't pass on the information to someone who may potentially be able to find a wealth of knowledge from what I could typically show or project. So I'm going to start by telling you guys that you can purchase a clutch removal tool for Poulans. This tool isn't very expensive. I think I gave $13 or $14 for it on eBay. And as you can see, there's nothing fancy here. It's just a clutch removal tool. If you're going to work on the Poulans, I highly recommend, as I mentioned earlier, that you get a pressure gauge and block-off plates. These block-off plates can be bought typically online. I personally got a great deal of them when I bought my EMAC kit. You're going to use ring compressors eventually at some point if you're pulling these chainsaws apart. These, of course, are ring compressors. They're plastic. They do make a metal version. You're going to need a good tachometer to do the job properly. I bought this tachometer about, I'm going to estimate 6-7 years ago. It's made by Echo. It is a damn good tachometer set. I use it quite a bit. Don't be fooled, guys. If you go to a shop and they're screwing around trying to tune it by ear, there's the potential there to burn the saw up. I highly recommend that you get a tachometer. These tachometers are great if they're properly used. A lot of times, though, people will tune one by ear and say, oh, it's good enough. Because in honesty, they ain't really worrying about whether it works or not. They typically just want to get you in and get you out. A lot of these shops do. But a real shop, okay, if you will, a shop that is dedicated to their customers, knows to have a good tachometer on hand. This is something that I neglected to show you guys. This is actually a Torx bit driver that I use to take off typically the covers on Poulans and Husqvarna, Steels, whatnot, what have you. So just in case anyone's out there that really doesn't know what a Torx driver is, this is a Torx bit, if you will, or driver. This is an ignition checker. It too is made by Echo. Damn good tool. A very handy tool. I've used this tool quite a bit on typically cutoff saws, as the spark on a lot of your Dolmars, ironically enough, and yes, I do know this is Echo, but on Dolmars will become weak over time, and Makitas. So this comes in very handy to test those coils. And last but not least, guys, is a pop-off pressure gauge that I use typically on just about everything, especially a lot of the two-stroke engines that I work on. This is a very, very handy little tool, and basically you can use this to check a carburetor to see what your pop-off pressure is for your inlet needle and seat. Can't deny the truth, it's fairly expensive. So bear in mind that if you want this type of pop-off pressure gauge, you're going to pay for it. Okay. This gauge typically will cost you between $60 and $80. But if you're going to work on chainsaws professionally and weed ears and trimmers, you need one. It's imperative. At this point, guys, I pretty well reiterated on a lot of the tools that I've shown in other videos. I could, of course, turn the EMAC kit around and show you a bunch of other tools, but if you're really interested, you can leave a comment in this video and I will return back to it and actually show more of the EMAC kit to those viewers who potentially want to see those tools, if you will. Until next time, YouTube.